in order and ask for a motion to approve our agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Armstrong, second by Holmes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. We can stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, it is time for public comment, and we have, we would ask you, if you have a public comment, come. Is that you? Maybe it's not sure. Well, sorry for the interruption, but if you come to the podium, please state your name, and we would ask you to keep your comments 5 minutes. Good. Public comment here. Okay, great.
Hello, my name is James Hardy and I represent the Hardy Family Farms of Buchanan Township in Page County. Our family started farming in Page County in 1842. We are the oldest family farm in Page County. We are one of the oldest family farms in the state of Iowa. And now we have an opportunity to invest our ground in something that can provide good outside of agriculture. And there's a chance that it could be interrupted by narrow-minded people. I stand here before you to make sure that it is understood that the landowner should decide how his land is used, whether it be raising corn and soybeans, hay, pasture, and cows, or as in the past when they raised milo and oats, sheep, and horses, and that's just on my family farm that these things have been done. Other family farms have raised similar things or even tried unique things. The county is better when these farms are allowed to operate of their own free accord. If you look around the county, we have developments, such as a housing development east of town that did not face kickback. We have a cattle barn that holds 1,000 head of cattle in this county. It's good for the county. We have feedlots that have thousands of head of cattle in this county. Hog buildings that have thousands of head of agricultural products. We have an outdoor concert venue in this county that is used on a regular basis, I hear. I've not attended it myself, but I hear it's being used. These are not strictly agricultural pursuits. They stand outside of it. Outside of our county, I know of things such as a tile yard that definitely increased the traffic in my neighborhood, but I wouldn't want to get rid of it just because it increased the traffic. I also know of a pumpkin patch that is run in the vicinity. Very nicely done. There's also deer hunting, machinery repair, specialty crops. All these things are allowed because the landowner made a decision and invested in himself. So that's what I am saying. And future developments cannot be seen. We grow Indian corn for our cattle, and it is an important thing for our cattle. It makes it much more efficient. It's a good feed. Yes, there are parameters that I must follow as a producer, but they are met by me. I don't expect my neighbor to meet my production requirements. My father started Roundup soybeans in the mid to late 90s. No one around him had them. Nobody knew what they were. They were surprisingly impressed when his fields were perfectly clean in the summer and in the fall. He was given an opportunity and took it, and now we hardly think of a bean that's not Roundup or Liberty or something. It's all. He was also one day at Fine Implement, and Fine Implement's been long gone, but he was in there and talking to Clem, who owned the dealership, and they were talking about a tractor that's coming in, and my father says, I will not take that tractor, it does not have power steering. An old farmer sitting at the counter looked at him and said, you're never going to make it farming, you're too young, or you're not tough enough if you can't steer a tractor. My father looked at him and said, you drive what you want, I'll drive what I want. My father's been farming and he's 84. Never done anything else. So not everyone knows what's best for your farm. Any ordinance that is passed should not be burdensome on either industry or landowner. They should be fair to everyone. I listened to the lies that were perpetrated to try to extend the wind regulations in this county to be burdensome. They tried very hard to extend the regulations. I live in a wind farm in Taylor County. I live less than a half mile from a wind turbine. I can tell you they lied about the noise. They lied about the construction. They lied about the nuisance of the construction. They lied about the construction companies. We had a corner that was going to send a driveway through a very valuable piece of ground to us. I met with the company and we got that road changed. They access to what I wanted to do. They were perfectly reasonable about it. They were perfect. I'll even be honest. I miss them working in the neighborhood this summer because they quit watering the roads. It was kind of nice to keep the dust down, and we've been kind of dusty this summer. So,
James, I hate to tell you, we're at our 5 minutes.
all right, well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Any other public comment? So we, on our agenda tonight, we have both the UTV ATV proposed ordinance and the proposed solar ordinance. Once we get into our meeting beyond public comment, it won't be a discussion. So if you have any comments on either one, now would be the good time. Yeah. I thought you wanted to say something. So I thought you wanted to say something. So this is public comment.
Hi, I'm Ed Brown. I live here in Clarinda. I just commenting on the ATV, UTV. I think it'd be an awesome thing to do. I mean, it's going to generate a lot of revenue. I've talked to numerous farmers about it, and they're all about it. And they have a problem, not one of paying a fee for doing it, because a lot of them live in town and can't ride their ATV to their home in town. So, you know, the city's going to have to come on board with it too. But I've talked to the city about it, and they said they would like to see the county okay it before they would. But then they said they will address it once the county does this. So I just, you know, I feel it'd be a huge benefit. A lot of the farmers I talked to, they said, well, they'd like the idea that, you know, and maybe they are, but they said they like the idea that their VIN number would be recorded. It would be at the police station or whatever, if something got stolen, whatever like that. And I'm sure they have that on their insurance, but still. But they're, I just feel we live outside of town, and there's a lot of times that I'd like to be able to just run into co-op, get fuel, something of that sort, or whatever. And like I said, I've got several neighbors in our neighborhood, and they all, they're all for it. But like I say, I know the city is going to have to come on board to make it work the best for everybody. But I just feel like it would, some of them I talked to, you know, they're willing to pay just about whatever, you know, whatever he has. So that's what it's about.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. Any other public comment?
I suppose I should.
Yeah.
I heard his bias order and.
Clean that down, Brenda, please. Yeah, you can visit, we can visit about how it would work or questions, and the sheriff is here too, that'd be fine, unless you, I mean, you can address this now.
If I'm gonna be allowed to.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it makes sense. All right, hearing no other public comments, it is time for JD's report. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm J.D. King, Page County Engineer. It's an especially fine day today in Page County. We did finish up our base stabilization and auto seal job at Bradleyville this afternoon. So you got your engineer's update yesterday evening. I'll just hit some of the highlights here. The blades are out. We hauled rock on Monday. Today we used the trucks to do auto seal compaction. We quit that at noon because it wasn't having the desired effects. We got a couple more running today. The pipe crews on F Avenue north of 2. After that project, they'll be moving over to a bridge on P Avenue near Montgomery County line. The bridge is closed. We're going to replace it with a couple of large railroad cars, and we're going to tear out the bridge. You know, the road's closed already, so we're not impacting harvesting operations. The spray patcher is still running on Nyman, although they are winding up the season. Probably got less than 1,000 gallons of road oil left. The shop serviced a mower tractor last week. We're continuing with our tandem winter service. We're getting ready for the winter that's coming sometime. The new truck tractors on the ground that it was hauling rock yesterday afternoon. We had some issues with our trailer ABS system. The old truck tractor is still in Omaha waiting parts. We ordered up the rebuilt engine for number 6 John Deere motor grader, and a couple motor graders are nearing service next week. I talked about the Manap project, the Northborough segment. You know, the second lift was on, and we're doing that yesterday and today on J55 east of Bradleyville to the intersection of Teak and 314th Street. Project development continues on other projects. What's not listed on your engineer update is we received approval on our annual report. The annual report is due to the DOT on 15 September every year. This is for fiscal year 2021. Of course, we're in fiscal year 22 right now. It lists as a summary on the second page, talks about receipts, expenditures of various types. But let me hit some of the highlights for you. The beginning balance on 1 July 2020 was $2,587,000. We had receipts to the tune of $9,393,000. We expended $9,480,000 and ended up with a ending balance of $2,940,000. That's I give this every year to the board. Look over it at your leisure, ask me questions about it, and it's available in the engineer's office.
Quick question. I heard you say 2,940,000, but it's 490. Is that what you intended?
2,490,000.
Okay.
And other questions about the engineer's update?
Is this the first rail car one you're doing, the first one? Is there two?
It's
There's the one by me and this one north of there, the other one.
I don't know. Yeah, the others. This is the first we've done recently. I was, at least in Taylor County, Ringgold County, and Taylor County's done them. I was in Ringgold County in the 90s. We put some in there.
This is a old wooden bridge on a dirt road that's failed. And this is a suitable low-cost alternative.
Right, I'm going to look at it.
If there's no other questions on the update, I'd like to turn our attention to the next agenda item. We have some farm to market system modifications planned. The meeting is in mid-December. It's due to the farm to market review board a month ahead of that, so this is the month to work on it, and there's a resolution required for the board of supervisors to adopt. And hopefully we can display it.
How much discussion have you had with the landowners that are impacted down there by this?
I have discussed it with the landowners on the Yorktown piece. I have not on the Teak piece. This is not, we're not necessarily changing the road at this time. We're changing the classification. So that this changes the classification of the roadway. It also would then expand the source of funds that could be used on repairs or construction. So it's a lot of transportation guy talk for the supervisor resolution language. But if you turn to this, the first one here, this is Teak. Between the 314th Street there, the north curve before J55 heads east. J55 is the farm to market. B, going north and south, is the farm to market also in 300, which goes east and west. And right now, Teak between 314 and 300 is an area service road, so we spend local money on it only. It's a gap, and then Teak on up to Shamble on the 265th is all farm to market. So there's a mile and a half gap in our farm to market network there. And we're going to ask the review board to connect that. We'll see what they say. This is an addition, of course, of mileage. And that'll take the farm to market road past the quarry, which is a dust generator, which we just reminded of today. A lot of dust along Teak with the road closed. They're doing construction down there. Has slowed down. There's plenty of dust. So to me, it makes good sense. Improves the network in Buchanan Township. Some folks think they're slighted, and it's true. There's not as much. There's no pavements in Buchanan Township. There are hard surface roads, but no true pavements. That's the first part of the FM modification resolution. The second part is up by Yorktown. It's a scheme the engineers used to replace a bridge and get rid of a bridge. I've spoken with the landowners there. There's a couple landowners involved. Basically, there's two bridges on Snake Creek, one on L Avenue, and then one on the curve there on 220th. So what I'm proposing here is to build a section of road in the green and get rid of the Snake Creek Bridge, the East Snake Creek Bridge on L Avenue. So I can certainly build 2,200 feet of roadway for the cost of the bridge. And then we'll have fewer bridges. So we're gonna subtract the red, which is farm to market currently, and turn the little dab of blue, which is below that, and the green into farm to market. And the colors there are part of the requirement from the farm to market board, how they want to show new farm to market in green, area of service, current area of service road in the blue. That's that little chunk of blue at the Y of the red on FF. This is a couple of years in the future still, but it's an opportunity to bring this in front of the farm to market review board, which is comprised of other engineers from across the state. So I need the board to approve and sign this resolution.
A quick question. Some of the landowners I've talked with about this reconfiguration had expressed a concern about the angle heading north. Is that a problem, or is that?
That's a generalized sketch.
Okay, all right.
We haven't designed it, you know, if they want to run it closer to the river, we can do that, you know, that would. The way it is now, that's a property line. You know, it's the old railroad. The old railroad item, that was the property line, and that's the city corporate limit line also. So that's the rationale behind the diagonal piece of ground there.
Any other questions for J.D.? If not, would like a motion to approve the resolution as requested.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Holmes, second by Armstrong to approve resolution 44-2021. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, JD. Now, the auditor has a numbered copy that they need. Do you need one of these signed as well for your records?
Yes, I'll send that along with the submittal.
You just need one sign.
Just one.
Yeah, this one's.
It's all signed.
For you. It says member.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, there is a spot for everybody.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Okay. Thank you, JD. Apologize for running a little bit behind schedule here. But next item, the 615 listed item, discuss and approve tax abatement, 108 North Center Street, Shenandoah. The city of Shan requested that. I think Corey's getting it up. There's the parcel. They've acquired that in their aggressive movement to fix up dilapidated properties and get them to be functioning on tax rolls again. Any questions about the request from Attorney Milan Sorensen?
I'll make a motion to approve the tax abatement for 108 North Center Street.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion by Armstrong, second by Holmes. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right, well, we're 5 minutes late, but Jane Stimson, you were up.
I asked some questions last week about the ordinances and the decommissioning. And I think I wanted you to enlighten me on the decommissioning on the wind turbine ordinance. Before that, I just like to hear the step-by-step process you went through to get to that, to get that wind ordinance. How did that all work? How did you find what you wanted to use? How did you decide what you wanted to use? And then did you have public hearing before you passed that ordinance?
Yeah.
Three.
Yeah. Well, no, because we waived the second and third reading, but yes, we were downstairs in the courtroom and we had 70 people there maybe that day at our public hearing.
Before you signed any ordinance?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we read the ordinance, as laborious as that was.
Mhm. And then you had a proposed ordinance, and then that turned into, when you voted for it, that turned into the official.
When we voted on it, and voted 3-0 to accept the ordinance on the first reading, and we waived the second and third reading, and we unanimously approved that.
Did you make any changes? I mean, where did you get the information that you put in the ordinance?
It was a process. I mean, went through a process, Jane, of looking at other counties in the state of Iowa, looking at their ordinances, talking to a variety of people across Iowa, talking with our attorneys. And the thing that you mentioned, decommissioning, I'll tell you where decommissioning came from. We felt in the ordinance, the first question was, do we need an ordinance? Because landowners, in the board's opinion at that time, was landowners could do, it's a private treaty. You want to build a wind turbine. There are counties that have wind or solar without ordinances. Our group thought that we should have an ordinance to provide some guidance on setbacks, which have been very contentious, but we had an aggressive setback. But the most important thing we wanted in there was the decommissioning. And the decommissioning, we don't have a contract because we don't have a project, but if and when we get a project for a wind ordinance, here's how it will work, or for a wind development. We will have the specs on what these turbines are in terms of height, power output, all the electrical specs. And the county, at our expense, will get an independent appraiser to tell us after construction what those turbines are worth and what they would take to be decommissioned, to be returned to pre-construction. The company, the developer, would have a couple of options. A surety bond was the one that most of them used at that amount and it would be held, and the contract would bind any future buyer the encumbrance of that bond, that surety bond. So that bond would be guaranteed. Then at the time of negotiation, when a project is brought forth, if and when one is brought forth, we would sit down as a group and we would agree as to whether the interval of reassessment is 3 or 4 or 5 years. So that every 3, 4, or 5 years, as a guard with inflation, we would go out again at our county expense. We would go out and reassess what it would cost to decommission in those days' dollars. Any difference in the amount being held in surety bond would have to be made up by the developer or the owner of the development. It could be somebody different potentially. So that's how that works.
Is your county expense to reevaluate? Do you have any idea how much that costs?
I have no idea.
That take up a certain amount of what you gain from the wind turbines?
Oh, I think, it'll cost some money, but it's certainly not gonna take much of what the turbines would generate in tax revenue.
So I don't really know about surety bonds. Where are they held?
I don't know, I've never written one. Our attorney, that's a Carl question.
Yeah, and I've read where sometimes the county will set it up so that they can use the interest from that surety bond.
I have no knowledge of that. Again, that's a Carl question. I don't know how that works, Jane. I've never written a surety bond, never been in jail yet. Where I typically think of surety bonds.
So is Carl in charge of the surety bond?
Carl would assist us. He would be our lead guy, and if he and his team couldn't take care of it, depending on what's going on in their world at that time. He would advise us how to do it.
So when the time comes to decommission, that's all up to whoever the board of supervisors are at that point, all that surety bond and all that kind of thing.
The board of supervisors would be in control of the surety bond, yes. So if in 20 years, whoever's on the board, it needs to be utilized, they would activate the surety bond. That is,
Then what if there wasn't, what if it turned out there wasn't enough money for the decommissioning that as it has set up? Who's going to take the fall for that?
I suppose we'd probably send you a bill.
I won't be alive by then.
No, I won't either.
I probably won't either.
So I mean,
Jacob will get it.
Yeah, Jacob.
Think about it.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean,
I hate to
that's
see
a
that.
hypothetical. I have no idea. I have
That's
no idea.
scary.
That's a
It's a
hypothetical.
little scary.
That's why we go through a 3 to 5 year process
Yeah.
to,
On the Fremont County solar deal, I'm just trying to digest it.
oh wait, can we talk wind first? I mean, this
I'm just,
is,
this is what I'm saying about that is in their decommissioning, I think they make the company pay for it. I gotta read it again.
oh, they do, they do.
I think so.
And-
That might
and
be a good
maybe
thing to
I
add
mean,
in there. So,
It's not been negotiated. If this board says, hey, to approve your project, you're gonna have to pay for it. I mean, we're not committed to paying for it. That was just how I thought it would lay out. But if the board in their wisdom thinks that, hey, you want to develop it, you're gonna pay for that. I wanted the board to choose, or at least have input in choosing who's gonna appraise it, because if they're gonna be responsible
we
for
choose
building
who
up.
doesn't, they pay.
Well, and maybe that's the way it is. So that's fine. But again, until you get a project, Jacob, you don't have that discussion. We got nothing to talk about because we don't have a project.
So you will take time after you get the project, you'll take how much time to talk about, or will you sign it?
Probably not
that
enough
day?
to satisfy some folks, but we'll take adequate time to make sure the
all
county
three of
is
us-
So do we
covered.
have to amend the ordinance before we proceed with
No.
the project?
Because the ordinance doesn't talk about the process of the surety bond. It just says that a surety bond will be done. And I mean, I could go back and look. I don't think the ordinance says we're gonna pay for it. I don't think it says that.
Wonder if that kind of stuff could be tightened up a little bit. I got a copy of it. I guess I'm kind of changing subjects in a way, but in a way not. I got a copy of the Fremont County Ordinance and, for the solar. And I think probably because they, are talking about personal in-town stuff, they have a lot more input on whether you bother your neighbors or not, that kind of thing. So there's a lot about it that I like, and I wish that the wind turbine ordinance looked a little bit more like this on considering neighbors and that kind of thing. So how will you go about doing your solar ordinance? How will you go about that?
The 3 supervisors have looked at a proposed ordinance, and it's modeled after the Fremont County ordinance, which is very heavy into individual solar. And you mentioned your boys were interested. This ordinance would, I think, take care of both that and industrial solar. So we're going to talk about whether we want to, that's part of our vote here, do we want to move forward with a proposed solar ordinance? Because what we would do is we would work out any differences that, you know, I mean, if there's some points, we bring it to the table and say, okay, we're going to come to a consensus on this point, this point, this point. Now we're going to publish it and we're going to have a public hearing. And that's how that process works.
Does a public hearing change anything or not
Public
really?
hearing could change something. Public hearing could change something if there was evidence or information that was relevant to creating a change.
Yeah, I think it would be wise to kind of study more than just somebody else's ordinance. Study all the pros and cons and get more information from actual entities that have it going on before you sign an ordinance.
Well, again, I believe this is correct, that Adams County, which has solar development, does not have an ordinance. And I also believe that the land agreements that are being negotiated between the potential developer and Page County landowners, that those agreements also have their own decommissioning clauses. And I don't know what those decommissioning clauses, that's why, again, I think that this board it would behoove us to have a county policy to control in case you have different developers and different standards to try to standardize.
Yeah, the solar stuff is a lot shorter life, you know, so the decommissioning is pretty important on that. And solar does have some toxic stuff in it. Supposedly they're sealed well, so it doesn't leak out on the ground unless it breaks. And then taking it somewhere to get rid of it, that's a toxic problem that we maybe need to decide if we want it gotten rid of in our landfill, that kind of thing, before it happens. I think that it's just important to be ahead of the game instead of, we don't know what they're gonna say, so we're not gonna think about it.
Well, I'm gonna go back to your landfill point. The landfill has its own board. The landfill at any time can say, we're not taking windmill blades, we're not taking solar panels. That's out of our range there. What we're talking about here is what Mr. Hardy brought up, is the landowner's right. You want to raise dogs, you want somebody to have an ordinance to tell you can't raise dogs because they don't like how they bark, or the urine, what it does to the soil. I mean, really?
That's actually not what I've been talking about. I've been talking about decommissioning an ordinance.
Well, but no, you're talking about, okay, you are talking about decommissioning.
I haven't said I haven't said that anybody should not have a solar farm.
But you said we
I
should
haven't
have
said
we should control the landfill and have it all lined out, have every problem solved before anybody builds one, is what you're
I'm saying
saying.
you need to critically think ahead of possible problems. That's what
And
it is.
we have been, I mean, we've been very involved, and I started doing research clear back about 4 years ago when I found out. Jacob? Atchison Holt brought up concerns down there, and they suggested that we start looking, because with them that close, we're going to be getting them here. So it's not something that we have taken lightly. I want you to understand, we are trying to research and trying to make sure that we're doing something that is fair and simple enough to solve the problem, but yet complicated enough to make sure that we don't have problems that we didn't expect. So we're trying to do our research. I'm Fremont County. I know they put a lot of money into it and our time into it, and I don't know where they've got their data. It looks from the front side, it looks pretty good, but is it perfect? I don't know yet. There's a lot of things that we've still got to investigate and make sure. And there's a lot of sources, both those that are dealing with ordinances on the farm and industrial side, or the farm use side, and then the industrial side. So we're trying to make sure that we meet in the middle where it can possibly work for those that want it. We've got people in Shenandoah that are starting to put solar on their home and utilizing energy. So we're wanting to make sure that we do things that are proactive, but yet don't create an issue.
Are you comfortable with all these kind of rules about what a homeowner should do to not bother their?
I thought theirs was a little bit more worried than what it needed to be, but that was my own personal view.
I think it'll be really good to get input from citizens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
All right, so on the solar ordinance, we've looked at the Fremont County primarily. That's probably the third or the fourth ordinance that I've sent you guys since Jacob came on. There are a lot of them out there. The Rural Affairs Office out of Nebraska has a template for solar ordinances. I mean, again, it's not a requirement that we have an ordinance. You can just let landowners do whatever they want with the private treaty and
but I don't think that's the right way to do it.
On this. I talked to a supervisor up at Isaac that was working in Des Moines County. They're working on, they have solar in counties around them, getting ready to come into there. And he had done a lot of research on this, and they're taking quite a bit of time to get it done, but his big thing is decommissioning. That's probably my biggest thing, so we don't have to pay the bill later. When we change administrations and all of a sudden all this money hasn't been pumped into this, and the investors abandon them, if that happens. So anyway, he had some numbers here that were just pretty interesting on that. And he's done a lot of research, said that to recycle a panel, at $20 per panel, he had it done by the pound, all this stuff, it basically comes down to, at the low end of his estimate, for a 800-acre project, 6.4 million to 9.6 million. Now, that doesn't mean anything to what we're talking about, we don't know how to gauge all this, but I'm just, what he talked to me in person about was a lot more money than what it seemed like you would think it would take. And on the landfill board, when they recycle TVs every year, we just had this discussion, it costs a lot of money to recycle TVs. Nobody wants them, they have to be palleted, and he had that in his figures. They have to fit the pallet, they have to be just right. Just something I really think we need to make sure it doesn't somehow come around the back door later on if they go bankrupt and we have 1,000 acres of solar panels we gotta get rid of.
I think that, I agree. The biggest challenge perhaps would be to find and be comfortable with the appraiser who's gonna give you that number. And to make sure that they've
It's
got
an
a
honest
track
number.
record. I think that'll be the challenge.
And with inflation, we all know inflation is going crazy, and recycling, it's assuming recycling prices stay the same, you know. That's my biggest thing with solar, is just making sure we don't want to harm a neighbor somehow, but these aren't 500 or 600 foot tall, or 15 foot tall maximum according to this, so.
Did they stay with the 15, or, because I know they talked about 25.
It says it right here, shall not be greater than 15 feet and maximum tilt of the solar panel. They do give, I was reading over this a couple times quickly, for somebody who signs up with an agreement with them, they get 100 feet from their residence. It says solar panel shall be at 300 feet from the residence of a non-participant or in their project. And then the other places it goes from property line. Of course, I hang up on property line, which isn't gonna change much project, but I think that should say property line, 300 feet. So if you don't decide to join the solar field with your farm, you at least have an extra 200 feet that they would give you if you had a house. Which isn't gonna, I don't think, stop anything, but I just don't understand everything else in your measures from the property line stuff that. So I glanced at it pretty quick. This is a
Pretty
in-depth ordinance. The decommissioning is quite a plan. Another question I had on that, the engineer is basically in charge of most everything. And maybe that's the best thing, I don't know. Engineers are elected, so I don't know.
I talked to JD about that, and he said that's kind of standard.
That's standard, okay. I didn't know how that works.
He said it can be the board of supervisors, but since there's so much
Engineering involved.
well, yeah, because of the locations and different things and the fact there'll be several different ones possible, he said it's good to have the engineer being more involved. So
He gave a lot of discretion to the engineer in carrying out and setting things and establishing things. But as far as the decommissioning goes, I just want to make sure we have a correct number for outfit to find that number that they pay for. So it doesn't become a tax burden instead of a tax benefit.
So how do we get the best ordinance then?
I think nothing's perfect, but I think maybe a little bit of time here. I reached out to this guy and I haven't even digested all the stuff he sent me.
a couple, 3 weeks, and then we can gather up some more
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Well, and if we could commit to in 2 to 3 weeks having the discussion,
Yes.
we may not be ready, but if we can. all
This is a pretty good template.
Yeah.
I looked at some others, but it's a pretty good template and they're our neighbors.
And that's why I like it the best of all of them I've seen.
Now I have a question, if this is something that's all coming about right now. If we go, say it takes a month or 2 to get this done, or 3 weeks or whatever, are people that sign in the next 3 weeks not gonna be subject to anything we do?
It's my understanding that until we get the development actually happening, that this ordinance, I think, and it's a Carl question, Carl's been gone a lot last week, I didn't get that clarified. But I think with the activity that's going on in Page County with lease agreements on solar, I think if we're gonna have an ordinance, we want to keep it moving and get it going. Because once we agree on what we think the best one is, then we have that publishing date of 4 to 10 on this type of ordinance, 4 to 10. And then with the newspapers, basically being a week out, you're talking 3 weeks after you decide before you can have that first public hearing. And then you can't pass it, now, I don't think on that second or third reading they can be waived, but not on the first night now, I think is how that reads, if I'm reading the code right.
But again, to the question, so if it takes a month or two to get this done, if there's a rush to sign a bunch of agreements, if that happened, would they be subject to the ordinance we passed in 2 months?
Great question. I can't definitively say. I will talk to Carl. I don't think that, of course, and I've asked, I called the developer and asked if they would give me a copy of their ordinance, or not
Their
ordinance,
agreement.
of their agreement that they're pitching with special regard to the decommissioning, because I wanted to know how good that decommissioning was. And I haven't gotten one.
Now, I don't know what it takes to do this, but if we did a few week moratorium just to wait, is that hard? How long does it take to do a moratorium? I don't know.
I don't know. I think you gotta have
We have to
public
make a
hearing.
motion.
I
We
think,
have to have a hearing to do that,
I think so.
just to pause things for a few weeks while we get one in place, in case.
And frankly,
You're always looking at
I
worst
don't-
case scenario.
frankly, I don't think that we're gonna have a solar farm pop up here in the next month, okay? I mean, I just don't think it's gonna happen.
Well, I don't think it'll pop up, but if they sign a bunch of agreements to be outside of our decommissioning.
But I'm pretty
This is worst
confident,
case scenario. I'm giving it.
because before we signed the wind ordinance, there were a lot of lease agreements. I mean, a lot of lease agreements that have been signed, and they're subject because the project has not been developed.
Hadn't been started.
Yeah. So I think we're good. Yeah, JD, can you clarify that?
I can't clarify that.
Ask you to come to the microphone, please.
And while the engineer may be a common thing, I'm not certain it's proper or right. I think in this thing, I think it should be the zoning administrator. Now, I'd have to be stuck with that too. Okay. I would be happy to tell you what's going on with solar today, and how we're handling it. So when landowner wants to put a solar array in, if he has a farm, if it's for farm, then it's ag exempt. I don't feel it. Somebody else with a house comes in and wants to erect a solar array along his property line. I talked about setback distances, just according to the ordinance. And it's a building permit, because he's put a structure of some type up to hang the solar panels on. If a resident or landowner wants to stick panels on their barn, have right at it. I'm not the structure's already there. You can, it's like shingling, except these really fancy, expensive shingles that make electricity. So there's some activity. Of course, this is not the solar garden or solar industrial. This is solar residential. This is personal to run your home.
That's something else I forgot to add. That'd be something to think about next few weeks. Contractor called me. I don't know, he said he'll call you guys too. I don't know if he got done yet or not. I was digging around the wind farm in Taylor County this last few weeks and hit the power line. One of the big lines could have killed somebody. But it was nowhere near where it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be 12 foot deep. It was barely 5 foot deep. It wasn't located. Anyway, so he was just saying for safety, that's all he's going after. They can run a extra tracer wire with these giant power lines that they're not running. That'd be something for solar too, maybe we should add, for just sheer safety, just to find it easier, because they were at one call and everything, but it wasn't where the plan said it was supposed to be, and it wasn't the depth it was supposed to be. And, that's just something for the solar ordinance I forgot about, but it'd be something, I don't know if that's in here, I didn't see that. It's not probably a very big expense, but to make it where we don't ever have a chance to hit one of them things. Because they said it could have been, I think, the excavator could have been moved 50 feet in all directions and tires no oil. I mean, the amount of power going through there is serious, so. That's something I forgot, we might want to look at this as a line, just to add a tracer wire to your.
So he was excavating where there was two being done and one was there.
It was way not near as deep.
No, not near as deep.
Supposed to be 12 foot, bored in, they had 5 foot.
Okay.
And it wasn't where it was supposed to be either, according to all the plans. And he said he would come in tonight and go over that in the future with us. He's just going for sheer safety for digging.
Sure, oh, sure.
And this is supposed to be safety ordinance, just, and I don't think that would inhibit them much cost, just try to protect down the road.
You
Somebody
want,
digging and hitting something.
you know, there's always, I'm not defending it, because maybe that's their general practice, I don't know, but it could have been like finding the hair in the souffle. I mean, it could have been the only one out of that whole field. You just
Could have been, but it was wrong and it could have killed somebody.
Oh, yeah. All right, so, let's see, we're on the.
I would make a
fifth.
motion to approve moving forward with the proposed solar ordinance with, let's see, tonight's the 5th, 12th, 19th, let's say the 26th, having plan on discussion of putting together something for the public.
Session.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Good thing, I'll second that.
yeah.
Okay, 6 work session. Okay, we got a motion by Armstrong, second by Holmes. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Very good. All right, okay, discuss and approve setting public hearing date for proposed ATV, UTV ordinance. We've talked about this since December or January, and COVID kind of got in the way, and we haven't done much. But the people who run ATV say, what's taking so long? Well, why are you guys not doing your job? And I agree. I mean, so we need to figure this out one way or the other. I've sent copies of the Mills County ordinance that they used with one revision. Their original ordinance had $30 initial registration, $15 renewal. After a year or two of that, the recorder went in and said, hey, this is a hassle. Can we just make it 30? And they approved that. So that's been changed because the copy originally had was their original. And then we got Brenda that wanted to visit about it. We've got Sheriff here wanted to visit a little bit about it. And I'd just like our group to either commit or decommit. Are we going to do this? Whether we have our ordinance ready now, or are we need more time, or we want to scrap it? That's kind of what I want to know. So, I mean, what's your all's feelings? Do you think it's important to have an ordinance? Do you want to move forward? Do you want to just wait till the state does something?
I think it's a good thing. I just, like I said, the first meeting we talked about, I just don't want to inhibit agriculture at all. Like, you don't have to do this. This just gets you a little more, or somebody in town would have rights. Your feeling, Alan?
I think it would be a good idea to have an ordinance. I think it, as he mentioned, some of the clarifications for insurance and different things, and I don't see any issues why we shouldn't.
Okay. And our ordinance is, the one that we are looking at proposing is more stringent than Iowa code. It requires, liability limits to be above the state minimum requirements, which can be a hassle for the recorder. But I think that, as Lyle explained in our meeting a few weeks ago, we can be more stringent in the code. The other big issue that you touched on is the the exemption for farmers. And my concern with that, Jacob, is that our law enforcement, if we do have an ordinance, if there's gonna be a sticker, it really complicates law enforcement to discern, there's no sticker here. I wonder, that guy could farm, you know what I'm saying? So, I think it impedes their ability, and for the fee that is charged, you know, if you get your boat or your snowmobile, you're registering them.
In this ordinance, it says that it does not apply to under Iowa code for farm, section 6 here. It does not. This ordinance does not apply to any exemption in Iowa code. Section 3211-9 for farm implements and government use in that ordinance. For agriculture purposes, government, public utilities, and licensed use, which are there. Farm operations. So I mean, I don't want to, I want to open the door, but I don't want to restrict anything that was there for agriculture, because are we having a large problem with farmers and UTVs at the moment, with what they're even doing in Page County? Are we having a problem in Page County with farmers and UTVs, like danger and accidents?
Lyle, could you come to the microphone so we could continue this discussion, because it's an important point.
Are we having a problem with them? No.
Yeah.
Do they wear their seatbelts? No. Do they have their insurance with them? Probably not.
Well, but farm implements, you don't have to carry insurance in farm, and they're being considered.
But those are not implements.
In farm operations.
Have you spoke with your insurance agent to see if an ATV or a UTV is covered under a general implement under a farm?
Well, I have insurance on mine, but. I
You have
haven't
separate
asked that
insurance or a
question.
separate right.
But yes, the thing is here, the state has thought about this quite a bit, I'm sure.
They're exempt from certain things, you bet.
So I don't
There's
want.
also, the only thing we see
Go
once
around
in a
that.
while, and it depends on the time of the year, is the hours or the speed. The speed is a general thing. 35 miles an hour, most of these UTVs or side-by-sides that they're getting are capable of 50 to 80 miles an hour, depending on what they are. The issues that we see that deal with these are the seat belts, probably some underage, because you still have to have a driver's license to operate one of those on the roadway. Farm is not exempt from that. So those are the only issues we see with that. The issues we would see, as Chuck had mentioned, if you want me to continue on to this ordinance, if that's what you want me to do, since you have to come up here, is that we see with this is on this ordinance, and I highlighted a couple areas in there. I don't know if you got copies of those.
I didn't send them on, I got them today, I
The
didn't.
other one that I sent you, I'll address the things that I had, Chuck had sent me this today and I looked at it. I highlighted a couple areas that needed, in my opinion, to be tweaked, but it's up to you three how you tweak them. The first one on section 4, number 2 of this ordinance. What I suggested, and it's just a suggestion coming from law enforcement, is my suggestion is a rate of speed greater than 35 miles an hour, greater than the posted speed limit, less than 35 miles an hour, or greater than reasonable and proper under existing circumstances and conditions, less than 35 miles an hour. I know that sounds like some attorney wrote that. Basically, what I'm getting at is a maximum speed, no matter where you're at, of 35 miles an hour.
And Ringgold County did address those.
That is addressed in the Iowa code.
Ringgold County says 45 on their maximum speed of 45.
Maximum speed of 35 miles an hour under the
They
Iowa
say
code.
45 is what
So you
Ringgold
just did something there. You went and made it more lenient than the Iowa code.
Which
with
we
that
can't do.
ordinance. You didn't, but that's what they did. So
And they can't.
No, they can't do that.
the speed now, that's a legal question, so that's a problem answer, but the speed, I apologize to use the word that way. The Iowa code specifies 35 miles an hour. And it says between the hours of sunrise and sunset. Now, if a farmer on Highway 2 has cattle out at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're all over the place, how many people are going to, and it's muddy or snowy, I want them to get the cattle off the roadway and get them secured before we have an accident where somebody could get killed. So sometimes if they bring their UTV out because the cattle are used to it, you're probably not gonna hear us complain about that, because the first thing we want is the safety of that roadway, because people aren't gonna be expecting a 1,400-pound heifer or steer standing in the middle of the road that's black, and all of a sudden they see it, and now we've got a serious accident. So those are things that common sense kind of takes over in that aspect. The 35 mile an hour is what I have. The other one, if you scroll down a little bit in number 4, I think it's just a typo.
Yeah, it is.
It's supposed to say ruts instead of MTS. Right. The other one, number 8 of there, it says, while the operator is under 18 years of age or without a valid license. So my thought on that is, why not just eliminate the while the operator is under 18 years of age and just say without a license? And what that is getting at in section 4 is unlawful operation. And it says a person shall not operate an ATV or UTV in Page County, Iowa, under any of the following circumstances. So in other words, you can get a driver's license at 16. So if you're under the age of 16, you cannot operate them on the roads. If you're barred, suspended, revoked, or just have no driver's license, you cannot operate them on the roads. That's what I said, just without a valid driver's license. I think that would cover that. The 18 years of age is up to the U3, of course, in your ordinance. Those are the things, as far as a law enforcement aspect, that I saw. The fee is up to you, of course, and any of the other things. The penalties, of course, that is something that you can set for fractions of the ordinance. But as far as anything else, that's it. The maximum speed, I think 35 miles an hour, that's pretty general. Yeah, they go faster than that. And seatbelts being required, of course, and a valid driver's license. Carrying proof of insurance, I think that's very important. That's no different than an automobile. You need to carry proof of insurance in that, just for the simple fact that if you're going to be driving this down the highway and you have an accident, we have to do an accident report still, because the state doesn't do it unless it's on state ground. So that falls under the sheriff's office if it's the county ordinance.
Do you have any comment relative to the level of liability insurance? The state minimum is 15,000. Our ordinance is suggesting 50,000. Any comment on that?
That is completely up to you. You know, that is a civil thing, and that deals with more of whether they're insured if they would cause an accident and somebody would become seriously injured. That would be that cover. Otherwise, it goes back on the owner of the ATV for any damages, whatever the civil suit brings.
And then finally, just for clarification, the way this is written, the farm operator doesn't have to register. Does that make law enforcement's job tougher?
It can. It can. I see both sides of that. I truly do. The issue is, and that would be something that you would have to listen to constituents on both sides of that, on whether or not they think that they should have to register. Yes, registering one can make if it's stolen, make it easier to find. All of them being the same, then we don't have to think, okay, just because John Doe that lives at 16th and State has a UTV and he threw a sprayer in the back and drove down the gravel road for, at this time, probably a mile. And it's all dusty and it looks like it's been out there for a long time. And says, no, I own some ground in Taylor County and I'm driving over to it because I can. That's where our issue comes in. How do we have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. And at that point, if he is, then he's legal. If he's not, then that makes us have to go back and find him and then file charges on him maybe a day or two later after investigations. And how much investigations do you want to spend on this compared to someone comes up and steals a motor off your grain auger? You have to decide where your time needs to go. And that's a tough thing. I agree in a point where, yes, there's a lot of people that have not registered these from the first. if they're in agricultural use or the other provisions of the Iowa code to use one of these on the roadways at this time. But that's, you three have to decide that. You have to listen to what your constituents are saying as far as whether or not everyone in Page County has to register it, no farm exempt or anything, or if it's just everyone other than exempt from a farm.
Okay.
And that comes under you. That's not under whether myself or Brenda decide that. And
Or, all the ordinances I've read have had that clause in there that farm is separate, because this does not touch the farm exemptions. The ones I've read have all had the same exemption. They all look about the same. They all have that about the end, section 6, it says this does not come in the way of that. And
the other thing that you have in here on your ordinances is dealing with, or on your proposed ordinance here, is dealing with where it can be operated, section 3. And I'm going to point that out. I have no opinion on that. It says the intent of this ordinance is to keep ATV, UTV operations on Page County paved roads to a minimum. As a result, registered ATVs and UTVs may be operated on Page County gravel roadways in the event that there is no permissible Page County gravel roadway available, or it is not possible to reach the desired destination by use of a Page County gravel roads alone. ATVs and UTVs may be operated on Page County paved roadways for reasonable distance to allow the operator to arrive at the nearest available Page County gravel road or desired destination. That's kind of the double-headed snake right there. So are you going to let them go if they're coming into town on Wall Street, let's say, or Redwood is known in the county designation? That's a paved road. So if somebody lives 3 miles out and wants to come see their friend right on the outskirts of town that lives on that road, they're going to have to take a gravel road at least 2 miles out of their way to come back in. How often do you think that's going to happen?
well, it says keep it to a minimum. It doesn't say.
That's why I
like
said it's a
absolute,
double-headed,
no
it's a
way.
double-headed sword.
Yeah.
Or snake, however you want to look at it. It's something there. It also says, this ordinance shall not be construed to permit or opine on the operation of ATVs and UTVs on state highways or municipal roadways. What that means is you cannot drive that on a state highway, Highway 2, Highway 71.
Now in
Highway
agriculture,
48.
can you?
I'm going with the
I
ordinance.
know, I'm saying, but if you're under the farm, you still could.
We're not gonna go into that
I'm just
on this
saying that
ordinance
it's
right now.
not.
That's, the code's there, the code says what it can and can't do under agricultural. So, yes, but what I'm getting into is section 3 is that your ordinance is not permitting them to operate on state highways or municipal roads.
Right.
So in other words, Clarinda, Shenandoah, and I don't know if Essex does or not, I'm not gonna speak on that point, but most of our other small cities or towns have ordinances for the use of side-by-sides, ATVs, snowmobiles, and they allow them on certain streets.
Shannon Clarinda does not.
Shenandoah and Clarinda do not at this time, for sure. Essex, I'm not 100% sure.
And as we heard from,
And that there's a good chance that some of these municipalities, speaking with both chiefs of police, one is for it, one is probably not going to be for it. That is up to the city council, just as it is up to you three to decide whether or not they are going to follow suit if you pass this ordinance and go from there. It's not up to me what the ordinance says. It's up to our office to enforce this ordinance as it's written, however you decide it's written. Those are just suggestions to look at. As far as the agricultural use, that is not up to me. That is up to you three to decide. And no, I'm not leaving you hanging. That's your decision. It is whatever you decide. Whether you decide to wait for the state to come out with one, or whether you decide to propose one, that's your three.
well, I'd prefer not to wait for the state, because what'll happen, they'll charge $30 and we'll get $1.90 to administer and
If we're
do all the
lucky.
work. So.
Any more questions for me?
Not off the top, but.
I'll stay over there.
Yeah, we might recall you. Brenda, did you want to add to that?
Brenda?
I'm gonna start off by saying that I am not against this ordinance at all. I have had several calls from residents, and they happen to be inside the city limit residents, saying that they would love to have this opened up to have an ordinance. So I kind of hope that the cities do come aboard with this, but I also want to say to you that, and we've already said it, that in the code that farmers are exempt from paying registration fee, paying the sales tax, paying the title fee. So they are already exempt. So when we open this up, then these farmers are going to have to bring the paperwork into me, and they are going to be paying for the first time around $59.25 or something like that. You're going to have to buy a title, you're going to have a registration, and then you're going to have your $30 permit. So I just want them to be aware that they are going to have to pay that up front. And some of them, if they don't have the tax exemption, they're going to have to pay sales tax. So they're going to have to bring me, there's so many of them that are not registered, and if they don't have the proper paperwork, then we'll have to have an affidavit done. And when you do an affidavit, then the sheriff has to sign off on that. Well, anywhere, yeah. But they'll come to the sheriff's office. And then we'll have to have a bill of sale. And so some of them might have to pay sales tax if they don't have an exemption. And then every year, then it will cost them around $47.75 to register. Something that they've done, because it is in there about ag purposes. But I just want everybody to be aware, and I'm not against the ordinance at all. And yes, it's going to create, because there's a checklist that I'll have to go down through, and we'll have to make sure we get all the proper paperwork when they get their decal. Don't have a problem with that at all. It's just that we just need to be on the same page on this, and that people are aware that, so they don't come to my office and I say, oh, no, I'm sorry, you're gonna owe me $59 and plus sales tax, and then they're gonna come unglued. So I just want them to be aware that there could be some cost involved here to do this, but
So
I mean,
clarification on that charge. I understand the $30 permit fee, the title fee. So people.
because there's a lot that's not
farmers aren't
registered.
Okay, so it's not
Right.
registered. Is that registered every year? If I live in town, I have an
It will be.
ATV, I'm registered, but now, right now, am I registering my ATVs? It
The
costs me.
majority of them, if you go to a dealer and you buy them from a dealer now,
Right.
the dealer sends us all that paperwork, and they are registered, and you only have to register them one time.
So, why would you have to register them every year?
They don't, for your,
So,
they're gonna be switched from farm to ag purposes to a recreational, so you have to register them every year. Right now, they're farm and they're exempt from that. And then they'll have a little extra additional cost the first time because they never register them when they came in. Because there's a lot of them that didn't register because they're for
but
farm.
if we were to set it up, such as in this ordinance that we've been looking at, where personal use, you pay the $30 fee, farm is exempt from the fee, but they still have a sticker, what cost would it be? They wouldn't have to register every year if they still own the same one and still got the same title.
It sounded like from the DNR that we would have to register.
You
Because
would
you're
have
taking
to.
them off of as a farm exemption, you're doing it more of a recreational. So then they'll have to pay that.
That might be why all these have that clause in them. So you can choose.
Yeah, you're gonna have it. Yeah.
Okay,
You won't pay the sales tax again, of course, and you won't pay your title fees again. But you'll have,
Well, the nice thing about this is somebody who can't fall, it doesn't fall in the agricultural setting can now operate their UTV.
right.
There's a fee there. And I think the reason it's waived for agriculture is because it's part of producing agriculture. It's like the sales tax on feed and everything else.
Yeah.
So okay, thank you, Brenda. Thank you.
Well, I'm just gonna ask Jacob, the speed, the seat belts are all the same, even if you're not registered though, correct?
I
Okay.
guess, that's a lot. I don't know. I haven't
Yeah.
read the code. so
I mean,
don't
you
know
follow
that.
those guidelines and you.
Yeah, I don't really get on the road that much
Yeah.
because I don't have
Yeah.
another farm to go to. I
Right,
don't want to
right.
live on. So maybe someday I'll have a farm run to. Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about her aspect of the DNR. That really does throw a different aspect into having to register each year. That does confuse things, because I would say the majority of the units of the ATVs, UTVs out there, how many are owned by farmers versus personal use? What would you guess? What would you guess the percentage?
If I had that, I'd pick the lottery winning and I would say
Percentage.
I do have a question.
Yes.
And if I may.
Yeah, please.
Not public comment. So where does the DNR come in with the county registering
Yeah, that's-
under a county ordinance like it?
Yeah.
Because if the DNR, if it's a county ordinance, how is the DNR involved
Yeah.
in
What I
what the
was-
county does?
That's my question. I can see.
I
where-
don't see where, if we do the stickers and it has nothing to do with the DNR, because it says nothing about going down a state park
Right.
or a trail, or even down on the county conservation trails. It's just for the roadways. So what Al brought up to me makes good sense.
This is what she said.
So we have this from a Lori Smith from the Iowa DNR.
A registered altering, and then it talks about the county board of safety.
Okay? Have you guys read this?
Brenda showed it to me, yes.
Yes, Jacob, do you want me to read what it says?
Sure.
It's on here. Brenda wants to come up.
No, you got a wonderful radio voice.
Okay, so this is from Lori Smith from the DNR Iowa. Hi Brenda, there's a section of the Iowa code that pertains to the off-highway vehicle use on streets and highways. Chapter 321I, all terrain vehicles. Operation on roadways, highways, and trails. All registered all-terrain vehicle or off-road utility vehicle may be operated on the roadways of that portion of the county highways designated by the county board of supervisors for such use during a specific period. The county board of supervisors shall evaluate the traffic conditions on all the county highways and designated roadways on the all-terrain vehicles or off-road utility vehicles may be operated for a specific period without unduly interfering with or constituting an undue hazard to conventional motor vehicle traffic. In designated such roadways, the board may authorize all-terrain vehicles and off-road utility vehicles to stop at service stations or convenience stores along a designated roadway. Cities may designate streets under the jurisdiction of cities within their respective corporate limits, which may be used for the operation of registered all-terrain vehicles or registered off-road utility vehicles. In designated such streets, the city may authorize all-terrain vehicles or off-road utility vehicles to stop at service stations or convenience stores along designated streets. I guess I'm still trying to figure out how that affects the county limits.
I don't think it does, now that I hear you read it.
I don't know.
I don't think it does.
That is a legal opinion that you could ask Carl to give you.
But Mills County has not adhered to that
No,
since they.
that's why,
started in
that's my
1999.
question, and nothing against Lori or Smith or Brenda.
Right.
But I think that's something that the county attorney would have to do. Al had a good idea that I think would work
The
good.
difference is 47 to 30, is what we're talking about here.
Well,
What?
The register,
Well,
if you're talking about $47 to register it versus
Yeah.
$30 what we're going to charge anyway.
Yeah.
We're talking about $17 a year.
I thought Alan had a good idea there, was that, and I know it's one more time they have to come see Brenda, but she has good Tootsie Rolls in there. I'm gonna
Yes,
tell
she
you that
does.
basket on that counter.
yes, she does, she's got some smiley faces.
So I think that even if, to make it easier for us,
Mhm.
and I'm saying that us in law enforcement, would be even if farm was exempt or agricultural use was exempt and they still came in and got a sticker,
I think that's what I'd like to see.
it would put the same color sticker on everybody that's on the road.
And I pay for that sticker or not?
And not, if they're exempt, then if you decide to do that, exempt them from paying for agricultural use. But then if, like, let's say I do, where I don't have a farm, would come in and do that, then I would pay the fee. It would be the registration fee, it would be the tax, and it would be the yearly permit of a proposed $30 to do that. If that's what you choose to do, but it's up to you three to choose what you're gonna do with this. I think this, you need to kick this around and come up with some ideas and have some more, have some discussion, maybe even next week if you just kick it around for a week.
Brenda, can you access the stickers and how much cost do they?
Yeah, how much is a sticker cost?
Yeah.
So that if you're gonna use this plan, we'd at least charge the sticker
A non-DNR sticker.
Yeah, I know, I'm not sure exactly, Mills County got 200, I mean, they're not expensive at all, and, I was wondering if, that Van Tillman could, locally could print up stickers that way, because I don't have a clue how many.
But you have to have them each with a unique number that you can,
Yeah,
so, but yes,
fee. Place in Newton that makes.
yeah.
And
I was
that,
gonna-
it does it for many
Burning
counties.
graphics probably, burning graphics. is
I don't
that-
know if it's.
I think there's
it might be-
probably places out
But,
there.
but
that
there's
do
no,
that.
what do you
And I don't
do
think
with a
that
farmer
they
that
can
can
easily
easily
do
do?
that.
No, they're not,
What are you gonna, this free sticker, if they don't have the free sticker on their UTV, then you see somebody with a sticker, what do you do to that? Do you give them a?
Then you give them a warning and ask them to go get registered.
You mean if they don't have the year sticker?
If you've got a,
Because right now, the way the law is right now,
farmers don't have stickers.
you're in this position we're talking about right now. The thing you're wanting to solve, you're in right now. If somebody's driving down the road and you say, where you going? And they say, I want to check cows or whatever. This position you're trying to remedy is currently in place. Right now.
We just have to prove that they are actually.
And you'd have to,
checking it out.
and
They're
how
not
much
just
trouble is
spending
being
cookies in the middle
caused.
of the road tearing up JD's roads.
You know, if they're doing that, then you're gonna work a little harder to figure out if they're breaking the law or not. If they're just going A to B and going 30 mile an hour, you're probably not.
Exactly.
That's put a lot of time in that. So this circumstance is already in place, and probably in place in Mills County right now where they have stickers and no stickers, is what Mills County probably is. I see the idea behind some of
Have
this.
you talked to Mills County? Are they asking all people with ATV, UTVs to register?
they,
Since they,
Here, Brenda, you can come up here and sit.
no, they,
They do not, I'll answer that for you, they do not.
I would guess because of that section, they just don't.
Because to date, they have sold 156 stickers.
And a lot of farmers are gonna come in and buy the sticker because they wanna drive into town.
right,
But somebody who barely ever gets on the road is probably not gonna worry about it.
right.
They might go on the road once a year or go a mile somewhere, I mean, they're not gonna.
But I like the idea of putting, for law enforcement, whether you charge them a fee or not, having the sticker on.
Chuck, you know, is the towns like Malvern and them, are they involved in it? Or, you know?
I don't know how the cities of,
I mean, because really, if the towns ain't gonna get involved in it, it ain't worth doing.
No.
It ain't worth doing that.
no, it's true.
Really. It really is, because, I mean, the guys I talked to, there's dozens of farmers that live in Shenandoah
Right.
that would like to ride their ATV to their farm.
Right.
And if they are not gonna be able to,
I think that,
it ain't gonna happen.
If we pass it,
yeah, my personal thought is, I know Shenandoah is interested in following suit. And I think if Shenandoah does, and I think if enough farmers go to city council meetings and say it's working over there, I think that it probably will work here, I would just guess.
But they're not gonna pull the trigger first,
No,
it's gonna have
no.
to start here.
You know what, because I've had several, they, well, you know, I'm out here broke down, I
No.
don't have my truck here, but I got a four-wheeler, I could ride it in John Deere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there again,
Mhm.
how did they get there? They're on state highway, so,
Down the shoulder.
you know.
Okay, well, can a farmer ride on the state highway? A farmer could.
But there again, if you go back, I don't say that on that.
So, James, you had a,
I just have a simple question. I live outside the county, but I live around in the county. That means I have to buy a Page County registration.
You'd have to come get a sticker. You're a farmer, so you're gonna,
The city of Bedford does.
City of Bedford, the county. I just was curious, I mean, that's.
yeah, I mean, as stands, you wouldn't need one unless we say we want everybody to have a sticker, we're gonna give you one if you're farming.
Check out, check
Right. Yeah, if you're currently under the agricultural use and this ordinance doesn't change that. Okay. Well,
I'd
I
say we
definitely
just,
think it would generate some revenue
Mhm.
on that part of it, definitely, but,
yeah,
if the cities are.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I just don't want to burden any farmer that doesn't want to do this. That's all I want to say. I'm fine with everybody else, and every farmer wants to.
I don't care about the cost of putting that on, but I think it'd be nice to encourage farmers to get the registration, get the sticker. I think that's something that would be a plus for everyone at some point in time. And if they're not going to be out on the road much, then they don't have to. Lyle's not gonna drive around, I don't think, and check every farmyard and see if they've got stickers. But those that want to, I think it'd be encourage them to do that. And if they want to, then they can prove that they're a farmer, that they're using it for agricultural purposes. There'd be no cost.
I think you'd be really shocked how many farmers would do it.
Yeah. I've already had some in the area. I've already had several in the area say they think it'd be a good idea to have everybody stickered. They think that it would be a good idea. And that way they would be more liable to make sure their kids aren't riding it or grandkids and using it improperly. So.
Well, even if they do that today improperly, it's illegal.
Yes, it is,
Right.
but it might make them more aware.
Yeah.
So,
Because currently it's 35 and most all of them are going faster than 35 down the road.
So then,
Sorry.
oh, I'm
Seems
sorry.
like you could hear me from there, but.
So if we clarify that, I mean, on the exemption, we leave them exempt, but in there we clarify that we would like them to come to the recorder's office and get a sticker.
What does the sticker really do though? It just says they have registered it, so it's not stolen or something?
Right.
Basically.
That or that it's valid right on the road.
or if Lyle finds one in a ditch somewhere, he knows who it belongs
Who
to.
it belongs
Like,
to.
like that or belong.
A lot quicker.
Just an ID tag is all that means.
So it's just like a license.
Well, I don't have a problem with that.
So we can, if somebody wants to draft that language, and then the other question I have, now that I hear all this feedback, I've long time said government can't protect people from themselves,
No,
and that's
no.
exactly what I'm
Right.
trying to do with that insurance. If the state of Iowa says,
I say 15,000.
yeah, if it's good, because what happens on their insurance card, a lot of them don't have the liability limits. It just says meets the minimum requirements. I think anybody that carries the minimum liability is stupid, I'll say that. Because you're gonna run into a fence and you've done $15,000 worth of damage. But I think if we would also change that to state minimum requirement, proof of insurance, simply proof of insurance. And then,
Hard copy there.
yeah, and then if we can agree on that as the rest of it, that we can, because why I'm asking, we got that 4 and 10. With regard to publishing, and I'd like to get it published and have the public hearing and the reading so that, here we are, early October, so that everything's done. People can start buying them in December, and make them mandatory by January 1.
That sticker is just gonna be our county ID badge for somebody who doesn't want to do all this.
This is what it looks like in Mills County.
And they cost about 70 cents.
$213.
Yeah. Well, not even that much, about 60 cents. But, and if Beth Ann can do it, I'm not opposed to that, but the numbering, it's gotta be coded.
Well, they just start with number 1. She said she bought 200 decals and they're at 156 now in Mills County.
Let me see that, because the Sac County one, I'll show you that one. It's got, the sticker, looks like what you get from the treasurer's office. It has the year, the number, all in, and I mean, that would work, so. Okay. So does anybody want to volunteer on that one language? Why you want me to do it?
So we need to change it to 35 or?
Yeah, we need to change that. We need to take out that shall be 18 years or older.
Right.
And possess, and
Just license.
yeah, possess a valid license. Why can't we say up underneath the registration identification pursuant to section 6, exempt vehicle operators may apply for registration at no cost.
Okay. That's great.
And that would be JD, that would be law enforcement, ambulance drivers, so if they got an
It
ATV.
says government or.
Any government, any farmers, government officials, anybody that's required to have that due to the rules.
The county secretary roads has a four-wheeler, they spray road.
Yep, that would be exempt, but they could get a tag for it, so when it gets stolen again.
EMA does one.
Fire department,
You have one.
yep.
You see the tag coming in. Tag.
Yep. Come in, fill out the paperwork. I realize that's going to be more work, but I think your girls with their smiling faces will enjoy seeing a few new people, won't they?
We just need to be aware that there are these spots involved, so
Yeah.
they come and yell at
Yeah. Well, it'll only be for the people that have never had one before, so it'll be exciting.
So then, what we need to do for the public hearing is, we can print a summary. And I prepared a summary which doesn't have the detail, this has the section numbers, and says for
Okay.
detail, you can go online or
Right.
get a copy at the auditor's office. Let's push that back by a week so we can get the language that we
Right.
discussed here. And then, but let's go ahead and set the public hearing date, out 1 week later.
Okay.
And so let's go on that 26th for our
Okay.
public hearing
Okay.
on this, and then we will have consensus,
Mhm.
and we'll get it published by next Tuesday.
Mhm.
We can say, okay, we've all looked at it, we're in agreement, now, and give the final to publish it. I mean, we can do it that way.
Okay.
So 26th is the public hearing date. All right. Well, thanks for your work on it. I think it's important. And to those who wondered what's taking us so long, I apologize. It's just, no excuses, but everybody's been busy, and as you can tell, it takes the recorder, it takes the sheriff,
Mhm.
it takes us, to kind of collaborate, and the times where we get together, have not been that many since this first came up, so, we'll keep her moving, and on October 26th, we'll have our public hearing.
Are you good with making the changes?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make changes, and I'll send them out to you guys
Okay.
tomorrow.
And Jacob, are you okay with that? And I don't think Lyle's gonna drive around and say, Jacob, you didn't get a sticker.
I just don't.
But it would sure make it easier if we recommend to everyone that they do get stickers at no cost, if they can get it. It would just make everybody's world simpler.
Are you okay with that, Lyle?
One last thing, we're driving around there, we see a sticker.
Yep, you're gonna be,
Or drive,
yep,
go down the beach field.
Yep.
Might be something that we didn't see a seatbelt.
Yep.
We're looking at the sticker.
yep.
Or no seatbelt.
Yeah. Darn seatbelts.
After 12-year-old kids drive it.
Yeah.
We might see that.
All right, well, and hopefully Shannon Clarenda will give serious consideration.
I will work hard on Shenandoah.
I know the chief here.
We
is
keep
not-
working on,
All right, so, let's go ahead and, get a motion and approve that we're going to set the public hearing date for
Okay.
October 26th.
we're gonna set the public hearing date for October 26th.
Make sure
Yes.
I got the date right.
That's
Yeah,
a
that's
Tuesday. yeah.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday at,
Okay,
October
I'll make a
26th
motion
at 9 a.m.
that we will have a public hearing on October 26th for the proposed ATV UTV ordinance.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Armstrong, second by Holmes. Any other discussion or thoughts? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries, perfect. And, everybody that talked, James and Brenda, we appreciate the input. Thanks for all your help on this. Okay, board communication.
Jacob, before I forget, you need a blue pen.
Oh, a blue pen here to sign.
Thank you.
Same as group,
Thank you. Glad to see you getting around okay.
What's that,
the
James?
same as group called this morning.
Yes.
And just said that they want to come in the next couple of weeks, just to say that meeting, then set up a meeting.
And that was
To talk about
after the
the
letter, the report that they
And I-
sent us.
Rolled that report,
Wow.
the pictures, and I didn't read it in depth, so I just kind of looked at. I told him, I said, looked like we had a pretty nice deal, I don't know what they wanted to come talk about, so.
Yeah, they had nothing
Yeah,
negative
they
to
took
say.
some real flattering pictures in there.
Nothing negative to say. Yeah.
So, but you don't have a date for that?
No, he
yet?
said they're gonna, what'll work for both sides. They'd like, to, you know,
I think a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever they can get here, I think. they need
I
to-
said it would work. I said,
Yeah.
we're here every Tuesday.
But that meeting's gonna be Lyle's crew and Jacob, as I understand.
I
Oh,
thought
that's
they meant to
just
come
you
talk
guys?
to all of them.
Oh, is he?
Okay.
I don't know. I thought it was all of them.
I think the report, they probably want to discuss with us.
Yeah, the all of them. Sit down and go over it with that
Mm-hmm.
architect or whatever he was, the guy drew it up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty
I
in-depth.
glanced at it. It was a lot of pages.
There was a lot of interesting things that I had not even seen from my visits before. The last couple of pages with the different findings that they had, it's kind of interesting, so. But plumbing, that was definitely, we saw in the bills today.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
something, that
That's-
toilet, good
yeah.
grief. Now, that bill wasn't itemized. It said how many parts they use, it didn't say how much parts cost or labor.
Mhm.
Be kind of interesting just to know what that toilet cost. I mean, and for $4,000 to replace a toilet, I don't know how much else came with that. There's several PVC and several pieces. I don't know how far they had to go. Or through the concrete, how deep they had to go, but it was quite a bill. I walked around public health today. I went over there and walked around, looked at it, to see what it looked like over there, running wires and everything. Talked to some gals in there. They said that there's a plan to put a lift into Chris's office or something.
Where his
lift.
office is at, yes.
Who's doing that, or how's that being designed, or who's discussing that?
That's
where's
one
that?
of the HGM. They're the ones that are trying to get together with us to
Making a plan.
present those plans.
And we met today on that topic, virtually, and, they didn't give us a timeline, but they will have specs, because, there's some asbestos, remediation that has to take place where that's gonna be built.
I was talking to them girls in there, a couple of them, and looking at it, and one of them used to work there when I was in preschool, she said, but if there's any other, I don't know, other kinds of options, you know, I'm sure they're trying to think of all of them, but I don't know what that's gonna cost. Put something in that office, go up there, if there's something, you know, on the west end, it isn't that far to get up to that second level. Even an idea somehow to work something, even exterior to get up there, just to,
Can't take the stairway out.
I mean, leave the stairway there, I'm talking about the hallway
Mhm.
upstairs where it comes, you see a window, you look west,
Mhm.
not that big elevation difference in the ground. Something where you could use handicap to get up there
Okay.
in some fashion or something.
Did you ever stop at that Sam's Club in St. Joe and look at that lift? They're not very.
It was around 100, the original figure was around $100,000. As long as you don't have to do any major electrical. That was the.
Is that to put the thing in Chris's office, or what are you talking
That's to put the lift in.
in there to go?
And
Is it a
and it
straight up
really-
thing, it's a hole in the?
That's really not just Chris's eye. At that time, it's also safety, and that's why we decided to use that corner. It's close to the entrance, and, we've got extra space in there now.
When is all that happening? When are all
Well,
these decisions being
there are
made?
a couple of things in the air. Nothing's gonna probably happen until we hear back from mental health disability.
Mhm.
And I was told, we should know by the end of the day, Thursday, as to their interest in renting space. Because if they rent the space, it would be upstairs, and it would require an ADA, bathroom.
And,
If they don't rent the space, we have a decision to make on whether we wish to make the ADA compliant bathroom upstairs or not, because by code, we wouldn't have to.
if we're not upstairs.
If
If we're upstairs, but
see, that was a request of the ACT team. They
Right,
wanted to say, and
right.
they would meet with clients.
Mhm.
And since they'd be meeting with clients who may or may not be disabled, we would have to have an ADA bathroom. But otherwise, there's no requirement.
Right.
Because, and then they're gonna work on getting us a quote, the specs on that lift, and making the downstairs bathroom, ADA compliant. So that we're.
And that is an issue that we do have to do, because the bathroom that we have isn't.
I went up
Yeah.
this morning, the door's
Yeah.
about this wide.
So they're gonna utilize some of that space a little differently to take care of that issue, or that's in their plan
There's gonna be
process.
So whichever way this happens or works, it's gonna be a lot of money. I'd just like to know what's going on with it when it happens.
Nothing yet, nothing yet. We don't have, but what we need to do is reach back to the remediation, the asbestos remediation people and tell them, once we get specs on how much space they need to remediate.
Right.
Get a quote on that, and then we'll get a quote back from them, and we got some decisions to make. But, with the amount of storage and stuff,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying about, the elevation shorter on that west end, but, I think we'll find that a lift would make a lot of sense.
Even a lift on the west end, just build, just like an outdoor elevator, basically. That could,
But see, that's where it was a lot more expensive, because then you've got to, because of all the, according to what they explained it to us that day of the tour way back 2 years ago, is you do the outside lift or outside, it takes a lot more structural items, and the elevator can't be the same as if it's in that area like what they're going to propose. There's some different guidelines that you're required to do to meet federal and state codes. So that's
one idea was just coming in there and putting, make sure we have some kind of retaining and bring dirt in, bring that sucker up, put a parking lot out there, then make it where you walk right into the second level. Build that up out there, not doing over there. Maybe elevator, $100,000, there's not a lot of dirt, $100,000.
Well, but then you lose your handicap parking, which you need to have for public.
No, he's talking about it the other end,
West
on the
end.
other end.
Pull in right off the street and park and walk right into it, make a door with that window, walk right in that hallway. Just another idea to think about. Well, it takes the dirt in there to build it up a few feet.
Well,
I just hold a lot of dirt to build a shed. I mean, a lot of dirt. I build it myself. Dirt can be moved. Just an idea.
yeah, I mean, if you could, of course, you're gonna take some architectural fees to figure out how to make that look in that neighborhood, make it look reasonable, where you don't make all the neighbors mad. I'm not saying it couldn't be
Yeah, I
done,
just make it a gradual incline to be a parking lot right into that door. I don't know about those things, but just an idea. That's all I had. I didn't have any other meetings this last week.
but, okay? Al?
I don't think I had anything new.
No, I had a meeting postponed this morning at 11, the human service meeting. I'm not sure why. I got a note last night at 5 that it was canceled. Got no other meetings this week. So, okay. Bills,
I think I'm not done with them over here. I didn't get the minutes either. Did you get the minutes?
yeah.
Yes.
No, I've got none of these. I've read.
This stack.
That's a heck of a deal. I think you, well, no. You
No, I
didn't.
didn't.
You didn't do that. And I'm not sure what happened to paperclip.
Oh, there's a
Oh, you got that. Okay. Oh,
baby left behind.
great. All right, so do I have a motion to approve the claims as presented?
Second that.
Okay, motion Armstrong, second Holmes, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Okay, minutes, I've read them, I've got no suggestions.
Jacob, anything?
I don't think-
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Oh, wait,
Oh,
I'm
he's-
sorry. I thought you
I'm trying to understand how it's
Sorry.
read here.
Sorry, I'll wait.
Okay, I guess I'm fine with it.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, before we do adjourn, board communication, we got these,
Invitations,
invitations.
yeah.
And,
Do you have any idea how many people are invited?
no, I don't. This is the first I've seen it.
Okay. And I would assume that if we all three went, we could sit in three, and that's a big enough room that we can sit in three opposite corners.
If we, yes,
I,
if everybody wanted to go.
yeah, I don't know if I do or not. I haven't checked my schedule, but I wouldn't mind going if I could. I enjoy
Okay.
listening to Kevin, so.
And we can always have, the auditor's office send out.
You just say we might
Yeah,
be in quorum
yeah,
or something.
right, right. So I'm gonna plan on going,
I'd
If I'm
like
on the
to
field,
go.
I might go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
you know.
I'm in the field.
Well, if,
We need to RSVP by the 15th, it says, Jacob, so, and you need to know if you want to have chicken or pork.
No question there, I know that one.
I'm
Pork
probably gonna let Amy know that I'm coming, and then I'll let her know if I can't, so.
okay,
Pork chop.
Yeah.
that'd be great. Project. And, anybody wants to look at this, it's a, chum letter from an engineering firm,
A what letter?
chumming for business.
Oh, okay.
Working on conservation, river crossings, land use agreements, pipelines. Oh, pipelines, that's why. So, and then let's see, I think.
I had a question on that, let's talk about.
Mhm.
I had somebody ask me this, and it was a good point. The third party that's gonna come check out the
Mhm.
pipeline that we said we might
Mhm.
hire,
Mhm.
and then whoever buried it's supposed to pay for it, we don't have to pay for it.
Mhm. Correct.
How do we know that we don't get left with that bill? Is that right, is that in writing, that we don't get hung with that somehow?
Our letter of intent that we signed states that we have no cost. We have a
Right.
recording of the gentleman verbally telling us that it's a transfer, it will never be,
Mhm.
but
Like, we don't somehow get holding it back.
with that same concern, I've asked Carl, after, if the pipeline does move forward, the letter of intent will move into a contract.
Right.
We'll button it up into contract.
Make sure that
Yeah.
they're waiting on that, not us. We don't get left with the back.
Exactly. But in the letter of intent, because I wondered, because Mills County didn't sign for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I read, there, somebody told me that.
And then, when I ran by Carl and reread the letter of intent, we're fine, but we'll button that language up if it indeed goes to a contract.
Okay,
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks for joining, James.